Hello, everyone. You know him from his most recent viral audio and video, singing My Search Is Over at Friendship Baptist Church over 20 years ago. Today, we will explore his life, both past and present, so that we keep our eyes on him for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a performer with a voice only God Himself could anoint, Dalian.
What's up, y'all? What's good?
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
As a part of this, I also want to give artists their flowers while they're still here and thank them for contributing what they have musically, artistically, and as themselves individually to the world. So thank you.
That's what's up, man. I feel honored for real.
So we're going to start at the beginning. Let's talk about your childhood and what are some of the lessons that you learned early on?
Some of the lessons that learned early in life. Obviously, the very first lesson I learned was basically, keeping God as a foundation. That was something that my parents, um, especially my mother, made sure that they instilled in all of her children at a young age. We was
Right.
always in church, at church. Um, and so that's most a lot of my fond memories come from church, but one of the most I'd say the most important lesson was just staying connected to God, no matter what.
Right.
We all go through a lot of different things in life, and sometimes we get to a point where we start questioning a lot of things, and
Right.
but as long as we staying in tune with the Most High, like it's nothing truer than that.
Right.
Yeah, that, and then just being passionate about um, the things that you love to do, being committed, never giving up,
Hmm.
um, on your dream, which is why this whole thing going viral is just such a crazy thing to me because
Yeah.
like I said, I was 17 years old, going on 18 in that video, and shortly after that recording, I got signed to an independent record label, and I was I thought I was about to be on and cracking. I was working with Michael Jackson's little brother Randy, and I was in the studio. I was getting beats from Jay Dilla, and I was on I thought I was gonna be popping when I was 19 years old, and unfortunately, um, well, I won't even say unfortunately. That situation didn't turn out to be the right situation for me, and you
Hmm.
know, um, I moved on, and and been trying to do it as an independent artist, since about 2005. So, to see this thing go viral 28 years later, and to see all the comments that people are leaving, all the love that people are showing, this record is really blessing people 28 years later, and it's just amazing to see, you know.
Yeah, so to piggyback off on your church roots and coming up in a church, I'm assuming that's when you realized that you could sing or that you wanted to sing growing up in that environment.
Well, actually, I realized I could sing before.
Hmm.
Um, Even singing in the church choirs. I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up on the height of Michael Jackson, like his prime.
Right.
And there wasn't a kid on the planet that didn't want to be like Michael Jackson, so I was, spinning on my head, moonwalking, breakdancing,
Mhm.
and singing. And I think that was when, my parents realized that, okay, like our son has a gift, and we was always in church, and I just remember this. I have this fond memory. I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. This was before I actually started singing in the children's choir at that same church. And I just remember looking at the kids singing in the choir, praising God, and having so much fun. And I'm looking at that like, man, that looks like fun. Like I want to do that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I asked my mother to, put me into the children's choir, and she put me into the children's choir, and um, that's when I got into the children's choir is when I realized that God had his hands on me, and that he anointed me with a gift, because
Yeah.
my first solo that I ever did in that choir, like the Holy Spirit fell so hard on that church, and everybody was like shouting and crying, and it was just a really really powerful experience. but yeah, the church is where definitely where the vocals were groomed,
Yeah.
and my musicianship, because I'm also a producer too,
Hmm.
uh, which a lot of people don't know. But it's just where all my musical training was groomed, in that church.
So seeing that, like, just the whole church getting into that emotional space with your very first solo, what did that mean to you in that moment? Seeing this happens because of something that you yourself were doing.
I mean, it was amazing. I had grown up singing in the choir, doing leads all the time. So like, it wasn't. It was just like going out there and doing my job as like letting God use my gifts to
Hmm.
make to
Hmm.
the people. But when Brent told me that, hey, like I want you to sing this song on the recording, and then I got up on that stage. I mean, I think you could kind of see if you watch the whole video. Like
Yeah.
I leap up on on the choir director stand, leap down. Like I was so in the moment and in the spirit. I was just like I was so ready and so um happy, to be able to do a live recording and have my
Hmm.
voice recorded on a major scale, because Brent's been making waves ever since back then too. I used to sing in his choir, TP Mob, back in the day. I sang in that choir 12 years old. He asked my mother, hey, I want your son to be in my choir, you know what I mean? And I sang in the mob for years. But
Wow.
yeah, it felt amazing. It was awesome, And a lot of people, it's funny because you go through the comments and a lot of people's like, man, the church ain't hype enough for me. They ain't,
Right,
you
right.
know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And it's funny because like I was so into my praise, like I wasn't paying attention to the congregation. Like I was like that choir, we were so into just us giving God praise and giving God glory and singing. It was like we were singing to ourselves, even though the congregation was out there. We were ministering to ourselves. That would happen a lot in the rehearsals, to where the spirit would just move and
It's
you
moving,
know,
come over you.
yeah, so like yeah, it was an awesome time at that church at that time, man. It
That's
was
beautiful, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
yeah,
So, given that you grew up in a church, do you think, and we know a lot of artists that also grew up in church, like Winnie Houston, Casey and JoJo,
right.
do you think that it's fundamental for artists to start off in a church?
I think it's best.
Hmm.
Um and the reason why I think that, um, not only for the vocal training side of it, but I mean, that industry is very, it's a lot of evil going on in that industry. There's a lot of corruption going on in that industry. It's very uh, difficult to navigate through if you're not anchored in the Most
Right.
High. So just having that foundation, it helps you a lot in that journey. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're
Mhm.
around things, your spirit will let you know, like, hey, like you need to get away from this. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, a lot of people get sucked up into it. You know what I mean? I've seen it. Like I said, I've been around the industry for a long time. I've been around a lot of celebrities. I've done music with people that are known, and been to parties, and it's just like it's like, hey, like your spirit will tell you, hey, you need to get away from this, or that you need to separate yourself. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and but yeah, I feel like that's the most important reason why a singer should have their foundation in the church.
Hmm.
But also, I mean, it's the greatest vocal training if you have someone that's leading that ministry of music that takes it very seriously. Brant was a stickler. He didn't play when it came to his choirs. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like he would, if he heard somebody that was off key in that
Hmm.
section, he would sit all
Put
the
them
rest.
together, yeah.
Altos and sopranos sit down, tenors stand
Hmm.
up. Okay, first row sing, and then the first row sing. Okay, it ain't y'all. Sit down. Second row sing, and he'll go through until he find that person. And then when he finds that person, he's not doing it to embarrass that person.
Hmm.
He's doing it so he could coach them on how to get to where they need to go. You know what I'm saying? So, and it made everybody better. It made everybody not want to
Absolutely, yeah.
miss a note. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, he was, and also he's a phenomenal pianist.
Hmm.
He was the MD of the band, and and he was the same way with the musicians. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just about having that perfection. You know,
Right.
And I don't think it was just that because he was a perfectionist. I think it also had a lot to do with, okay, we're doing this for the Most High. We want to give our best. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We want to put forth our best effort. You know, but yeah. So yeah, it was pretty crazy time.
So you studied under him for a long time, and I want to know, as well as like the audience, what is something that you learned from someone like that, like from a genius in his craft, that you put into your artwork today?
Um, I think what I took the most was his dedication.
Hmm.
Like I just spoke on. I think it was his dedication.
Hmm.
Um, he was very, even though he was the minister of music of our church, and we had, I don't know, 5 or 6 choirs. um and he also had the mob, TP mob, and he was doing
Hmm.
that, and he was doing a lot, but he always took everything. Everything had to be right. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
he wasn't satisfied until it was the way that it was,
Yes.
supposed to be. So, and I'm the same way with my music now. It's like, if it don't sit right, if it sounds like something's missing, or if
Hmm.
my vocals are not up to par, it's like, you got to go over, you got to do that again, you got to, you know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
really took that perfectionist aspect of it, and plus, like, his love for God, like, you
Hmm.
you could see it, you know what I'm saying, like his passion that he had for God. So when he would be up there directing, it was like all eyes were like, the whole choir was just like focused on him, you know what
Right,
I'm
right.
saying, like, and it was, that was one of the things that it was like, man, this dude is so passionate about God, you know what I mean? And he's so talented, he's so dope, you know what I mean? And I learned a lot of things vocally. I remember when I first started trying to do runs and riffs and stuff like that at that age. Well, actually, I was probably a little bit, it was probably like 13 or so. And he
Hmm.
was like, hey, look, man, like, not everybody's gonna come out of the game, with the super fast runs. You know what I'm saying? He said, just start them off slow. Start your riffs off slow, do them slow, practice them slow, and then start to speed it up. And over time, you're gonna be able to do those runs. You know what I mean? And it worked. It absolutely worked. I would practice my riffs slowly. Ha, you know what I mean? Until I could go ha.
Hmm.
So it's like, it worked. You know what I mean? And so everything that he, would all the advice that he would give me on singing, and all the drills that he would have us doing, and just all those things, is what made me, a better singer.
Right. So now that we've went over your his advice to you, what advice do you have for new and upcoming artists that want to be in positions like you yourself?
The only advice that I would have is, continue to do your work if that's in your heart. Um, Continue to trust in God and His plan,
Hmm.
because His plan is never your plan. It may coincide, but it's not going
Hmm.
to be what you think or when you
Right.
think. You know, um, I could never imagine it being set up the way that it's set up now, and I'm glad that I didn't become famous back in those days or earlier, because, you know, the way that it's set up now for me is like truly amazing. Even before this viral moment happened,
Right.
he already started showing me
Hmm.
with, things that I was doing in my life, my company that I started, and then, me and my brothers, we have a group and a band. We also have a film company, and we got a film
Oh,
coming out. So it's like, it
okay.
was really, it was really cool to see. It was dope to see, the video going viral in
Hmm.
the midst of all of these things happening,
Right.
unbeknownst to me, because I didn't even know it was going viral. My cousin texted me, and he was
Hmm.
like, man, I just want to thank you for inspiring me to sing when we were younger, and this, that, and the other. Man, you don't know how much you influenced me. And then he texted me again, have you seen this? And I look at my phone, and I see Brent's post, and it's got like 50 something thousand likes on it. And I was
Hmm.
like, what? Wait a minute. Let me go
Yeah.
look at this. And then I looked at it, and then I was like, man, like, people are really like showing love. And like, now there's a line dance, and people are
Yes.
remixing the song, like
Hmm.
sampling it. People are sending in their musician covers, because
Hmm.
like, this song is speaking to a lot of people, and I want people to use their gifts too. My gift on that song was the voice, but People. There's so many other gifts, that God gives us, to show Him glory. So it's
Right.
like, I wanted to encourage people. Hey, this is blessing you. Use your talent. Use your gift. And let's see what how God speaks through you on this song. You know what I mean? So, and
Right.
it's really dope to see that. People are being very supportive. Of course, there's gonna be haters and
Mm-hmm.
people saying, "Oh, this is Joe," and you guys remixed the Joe song, and
Yeah.
obviously, a lot of that is coming from people only watching the soundbite because that's the most popular part of that video is the Joe part, where we did pay homage, because Joe was one of both of our favorites. See, I studied Joe as a kid, as a teenager,
Mhm.
uh, 14, 15, 16 years old. Like I loved Joe. I would listen to his album almost every night, you know what I mean? Because I would listen to music to go to sleep. So his runs and the way he was doing stuff was soaking up, you know what I mean? And so a lot of people was coming at us like, "Oh, this isn't praise and worship. This is all for entertainment." People gonna say
Mhm.
stuff to try to rage
Right.
bait you, But at the end of the day, man, like there's so many people being blessed by it that it's just like, man, like that stuff is small fries. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
small potatoes. So, but yeah, it's pretty. I'm still in awe. I'm still in
Mhm.
shock. I can't believe this is happening. Really.
Yeah, and it's been going viral for a few weeks now. And can you
Yeah.
please just clarify for the audience, just how did the "I'm in Love" soundbite come a part of, My Search Is Over?
Well, like I said before, like Brent's a huge Joe fan.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who put me onto Joe as an artist. I had no idea who Joe was until Brent showed him to me,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "If you want to learn how to do runs and riffs, you need to listen to this brother right here." And
Right.
so I did, and I fell in love with his music. You know what I'm saying? I was just paying tutelage to Joe, paying homage to Joe. Plus the song is called "My Search Is Over."
Mm-hmm.
The song is talking about how you're looking for love, looking for a love, because everybody looks for love in so many other places,
Right.
but when we found it with Christ, the search for love is over. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the Joe hook, it was just like the hammer, to really nail in the message of being in love with Christ. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the whole message of the song, is about how my search for love is over because I have the love of Christ now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, round and round I go, out of control. I'm in love. Like we were all crazy in love with Christ. You know what I'm saying? So I think Brent kind of just was like, it was. I wasn't there when he wrote it, but I kind of feel like when he was writing it, that specific part of Joe's song came to his mind and was like, oh my God, like this is the nail. You know what I mean? This is what's really gonna drive the message home. It's like, I'm in love. Round and round I go, out of control. Like I'm in love. So I think it was more so of that. A lot of people are like, oh, the church remixed the Joe song, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't. I can tell you right now, it wasn't Brent saying, "Oh, I need to find a way to flip this Joe song." It
Mm-hmm.
was it was Brent, because when you listen to the whole song, the only time you hear Joe at the end of the song, but
Right.
you already bopping, you already grooving, the song is already speaking to you before that part comes in. When that part comes in, it it's the part that sears into your brain like, I'm in love, round and round I go, out of control, I'm in love. And thought it was genius, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of gospel artists were doing stuff like that back then, throwing stuff from,
Right.
taking small influences from R&B, and
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't understand that R&B actually comes from gospel music. It's a combination of gospel music and the blues and soul music. So there would be no R&B music without gospel, which is why the transition is so easy, because they're forever connected.
Right. Well, thank you for clarifying that for everyone that keeps asking the question. But now
Yeah.
that we've took a look into your past, let's talk about the future and your present, what you're doing right now. Tell us about, your projects that are recent that we can go look at and support you in any way, shape, or form that we can.
Most definitely. Yeah, well, I got a lot of music online, social media over the years. Like I said, I've been, trying to break through for a minute. My most recent stuff, the stuff that I did with my bands, Just Jones, is Jones with a Z. Um, and we got a really dope album. It's kind of hard to classify because we our songs have so many mixtures of genre in them,
Right.
you know. So they kind of classify us as pop, I guess. You know what I mean? I wouldn't consider us to be a pop band because we're way too soulful. A lot of people tell us that we remind them of Boys to Men.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we did a project called Life in 3D back in 2018. Shortly after we um, did a cover of Michael Jackson's Billie Jean,
Hmm.
which we did. We have the video for that as well on YouTube. Um, and that started to get a lot of traction, but that's a whole nother story, for later on. But yeah, we got that, and then from that we were able to position ourselves to be able to film a movie. So
Right.
it's it's pretty cool, man. Like God is good. I started a karaoke company about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was working in the kitchen. I'm like the jack of all trades, man. Like
Yes, you
while
definitely
doing
are.
music,
Amen.
music don't when music don't pay, you still got to pay your bills. So
That's
like I did maintenance, fixing the houses and apartments for 20 years, and then I ended up getting off into doing security, and then I didn't have the patience for the security anymore after 4 or 5 years of doing that. And then so I kind of transitioned to the kitchen, and started off as the entry level cook guy and worked
right.
my way up to the lead cook. And and God just gave me a lot of favor with all of my um previous employers, because now all of those people have employed me to have karaoke at their businesses. So now I work for myself. I'm not in the kitchen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I make really good money um, singing and doing what I love to do, and creating a good vibe and helping people have a good time. So it's just been a blessing to see how God's had His hands on things, because I'm human too, and I went through that phase of like maybe I should just throw in the towel. Maybe I should just, I'm gonna give it a year or two more, and then I'm gonna put my focus elsewhere. You know what I mean? And I feel
Right.
like that's what the enemy does. He tries to talk you out of your trust. You know what I'm saying? With God, he tries to talk you out of, like, well, maybe this isn't what he wants for you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Maybe you should do something else.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of questions, but my faith and my love for God is so strong that I was just like, man, Lord, I know you didn't put this on my heart for nothing. You know what I mean? You didn't give me this. You didn't give me this for nothing. And then now, 28 years later, he's like, I told you. I
Still
told
going.
you.
Still going. Yeah, but I love that you're still able to do what you love while also being a businessman. Like you are your own boss while still continuing to do what you absolutely love and this passion that you've been
Absolutely.
carrying since you were a child. Like that's amazing and that's beautiful, and I'm so glad and happy that God made a way for you to do what you love. Still, that's
Yeah.
that's
And
that's
this is just the beginning too, man. It's just,
right,
you
right.
know,
Just the beginning. I agree.
so many other things that I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I never wanted success for myself. I
Hmm.
always wanted success to share with my family and be able to be in a position to where I could do something to help the world. You know
Right,
what I'm saying? To
right.
help people that are in need. So, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with your intentions. From the beginning, some people are out here for money. I mean, of course, we want to make money. That's
Hmm.
any time, any business. That's the whole point. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the same time, no one should ever sacrifice their integrity. You
Hmm.
know, uh, or risk their legacy for money.
Hmm.
And money's never been that much of an obsession for me, because I grew up. We didn't have money. we
Hmm.
we was broke. We was broke. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we knew how to make the best of what we had, and that's what I've always done. When I needed beats, I went and learned how to make beats. You know what I'm saying? When I needed an engineer, I went and learned how to engineer. I went to school. You know what I'm saying? So it's really about how much you're willing to put into it yourself. What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And even if you don't recoup on all those hard efforts in the beginning, you got to keep going, because if you got faith in God, you trusting in God, he gonna show you that you moving in the right ways. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm. Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's been
Wow.
a crazy journey, to be
Dropped
honest.
a lot of gems today. I love it. Yeah. Thank you, though. So I recently saw you do a cover of Grateful, and my question is, how have you preserved your voice for over 30 years?
God,
That's right.
the
That's
Most
right.
High, the
Mhm.
Most High, yeah, the Most High. I mean, right now I'm sounding terrible right now because honestly, I think I damaged my vocal cords. I
Mhm.
used to have a partner with my karaoke company, and unfortunately, he's no longer a part of it, and we got into a little bit of an argument,
Mhm.
and I let my emotions get the best of me, and we got into a bit of a screaming match, a yelling match, and I lost my voice. So, like, even when I was singing that, when everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we want to hear it now, we want to hear it now," I was like, "All
Yeah.
right." I mean, it's not gonna be my 100%. You know what I'm saying? But I
Mhm.
mean, I'll do the best that I can. You know what I mean? And like, even funny story about that day when I did Grateful. That was last Saturday. It was my sister's 50th birthday party, and my
Mhm.
mother had asked me to do something for her birthday, and I almost wasn't gonna do it. I had told my mom because my voice was I didn't have a voice like I did
Right.
not have a voice that morning, no voice.
Mhm.
And I told my mom, I was like, "Hey, I don't think I'm gonna be able to sing at the party because I don't have a voice."
Mhm.
And she was, she got to looking all sad and everything because she knew my sister was gonna be disappointed about it. And I didn't really think nothing too much of it. I still kind of was like, all right, well, if I do end up singing something, like, what would I want to sing? And I was going through all these different songs, and then I actually DJ'd the brunch too. So that song "Grateful" came on, and I was like, oh, this is perfect, especially for
You
me
have to
because
do
how
it.
grateful I am right now with everything that's going on
Mhm.
social media, and so I was like, you know what, like I was ripping and running, doing errands and stuff, helping get the party ready, and so I went to go run some errands. I went and got me some coffee or something like that, and then when I got back to the church, um, I put Grateful on and I started singing to it, and it's like the voice came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? It
Mhm.
was just like I went from no voice to having a voice
Oh, wow.
out of nowhere. I did
Wow.
one. I did one run through, like, to try to kind of warm up. I was like, I need to see where my vocals are at right now to see what notes I can achieve, and what, with that way, if I need to change something, I could come down or whatever. And the run through was like almost seamless. You know what I'm saying? And there was like a couple people that were that were helping set up for the party, and they were just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! Like, you sound so
Yeah.
great." And I was like, "Okay, so it looks like I'm singing today." You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So that wasn't nothing but God, man. I'm telling you, man. Like, I did not have a voice, and I was not going to sing. And I was already like, I was ready to tell my sister, "Hey, listen, I love you to death, but I don't have no voice." And I knew she would have been understanding, but I mean, obviously God worked it out. He had other plans. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Amazing. Like you talk about, sorry, you talk a lot about just how, in this moment you thought something wasn't going to happen. You maybe think about all the wrong things that could have happened. How do you keep like a strong foundation with God, even when things are not going? You know how you said like some things aren't going to go your way because it's all of His plan. How do you keep that strong foundation with God, like for this long as well?
Um, I think a lot of it has to do with like, I'm not the biggest like formal prayer, like,
Hmm.
"Oh Heavenly Father," like that.
Right.
You know, um, I do understand that prayer is just communication with the Most High, and I talk to Him like how we talking. I really, um, I treat my relationship, you know, like He's real. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
a lot of people will pray to God, and they say they believe, but they hold a lot of doubt. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I feel like just throughout my life, and me just communicating with God, just like, "Hey Lord, like, what are you trying to show me right here? Or why is this, like, what do I need to learn from this? Like, what direction do you want me to move?" Because I remember, um I got to a point where I felt like singing was too easy for me. Like,
Mhm.
it's easy for me to go into church and have people falling out over my
Mhm.
vocals. I kind of like got tired of being used in that way, low key. I
Mhm.
asked God to start using me in a way um that was outside of me singing. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Because there was a time where I used to be afraid to speak up on it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember being in high school and my first year in community college, where I would hear people arguing about religion and this, that, and the other, and I would sit there and just be like, man, this person is lost. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Not really saying anything, because like I wasn't reading my Bible 15 to 20 minutes a day. I couldn't quote scriptures like the preachers was quoting scriptures and things of that
Right.
nature. But I have been soaking up so much of the word that it was on my heart. That it was it's in my heart. You know what I'm saying? So, like, after I asked God that, it was funny. He started sending my homies that were in the streets my way. Like, hey,
Mm.
bro, like I know you grew up in church. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, what's your perspective on this? And the homies start coming up to me asking me questions about God. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I was like, ooh, you know what I mean? And then I
Mhm.
started to notice that he would use me no matter where I was at. It didn't matter where I was at. You know what I mean? And I'm not a perfect person. I might want to go and have a drink. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And but I've seen some miraculous things happen. You know what I'm saying? You never know where God is going to use you, and you never know when God is going to use you, but you got to be prepared to be used no
Absolutely.
matter what. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Whatever it is, sit that down, whatever it is, and you know what I'm saying? So, um, yeah, it's just a a blessing to be able to um, bless people with my voice, and as
Mhm.
well as be able to speak with people who may not come to church, because
Right.
not everybody's gonna come to church. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And being able to say things in a way to where it makes sense to some people, because some people will come to church, but then they get lost and they
Right.
confused. They try to read the Bible, and it starts confusing them even more. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
um, I think it's such a blessing that like, I ain't nobody's preacher. I ain't nobody's, pastor. My homie, he's funny. He said, "No, you my pastor," and I'm like, "I ain't
That's
nobody."
right. That's right. You're a vessel. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "You my pastor." And I'm like, "Look, man, I
Mhm.
ain't nobody's pastor. I'm just a vessel." You know what I'm saying? But I thought it was pretty cool. It made me feel good. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because it showed me that, okay, like, he learned something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
God was able to reveal something to him. Through how I delivered it to him, through our conversation.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, man, it's awesome. It's awesome. Just staying in that constant contact with God. Because when
Right.
you do that, and you're His,
Mhm.
even if you you get loose for a little bit, He ain't gonna let you go too far. He gonna yank
Mhm.
that chain back. You know what I'm saying? And be like, hey, like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Doing a little bit too much. Come on back over here. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? But yeah, that's what I would say. Just help. That's what helped me keep my relationship with God. Was just I don't know. I felt like I was just always in love with him. Even to this day, I'm like, he blows my mind. He blows
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
mind. Like, things
Absolutely.
that like, I could never imagine, that don't even have nothing to do with what's going on with me right now. On social media, it's just like
Yeah.
every day he just shows me, like, man, you are just insanely amazing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that would be my advice. Just just stay connected. That's Just stay connected.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that beautiful answer. And we have talked a lot about music, but we also want to know, who are you outside of your artistry?
Um, well, I'm the coolest cat on the planet.
That's right. That's right.
I'm the coolest dude in the world. I mean, I just I love
Hmm.
people. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
love good energy. I love good music. I love good vibes. You know, um, I, I host my karaoke. I'm involved in, film and television. Um, You know, I spend a lot of time writing and producing music and stuff like that. Um, but I'm just an overall just a cool cat, man. Just somebody who just
Yeah.
wants to spread the love of Christ. You know what I'm saying? Through my actions. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Through my, how I'm treating people. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And it's crazy because God will show you that, man. Like I'll be in places and random people will walk up to me like, "Hey, man, like I could feel your energy, man. Like I can tell you're blessed." I don't even know these people. Never
Mhm.
talked to them. Never had a conversation with these people in my life. You know what I'm saying? And I get that
Mhm.
a lot. You know,
Yeah.
just being out and about, people really do see your light. You know, and people talk about it. Talk about it in church all the time. Let your light shine. You know what I'm saying? Um, and and that's what I do, man. I just try to spread the love of Christ because that's what Christ came down to do. You know, he came down to
Mhm.
spread love and to reconcile us back, to the Creator. So it's like, I remember the what would Jesus do movement. Well, Jesus would love. Jesus
Right.
that's what he did. That's what he came down here to do. He came down here to love. I mean, there's other things obviously that he did, but the bottom line is what he was trying to tell everybody was love one another. Treat everyone, treat your brothers and sisters, your neighbors, your enemies with love and kindness. He's telling you to pray for your enemies. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
He's telling you to pray for your enemies for a reason, because if you pray for your enemies, he's gonna break through. He's
Mhm.
gonna be able to have a breakthrough to where your enemy is no longer your enemy. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? He turn your enemies into your friends or your footstool or your footstools. You know what I'm saying? He
Yeah.
will he will elevate you above the ones that are hating on you, and while you're praying for them, he's able to change their hearts. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, um, but yeah, that's who I am. I'm just a brother who loves music, loves God.
Mhm.
I love sports. And I just want to see people win.
Mhm. Well, thank you for that. And my next question is, given that this is a nostalgic series and that is something that I really delve into, we spoke about Michael Jackson, but can you tell us about some of your favorite artists from the past?
Absolutely. Um, Stevie Wonder.
Mm, great one.
um, Stevie Wonder is probably my like all time everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, D'Angelo,
Mm,
the father of neo soul, um, humongous influence on me.
yeah.
Um, of course, I mentioned Michael Jackson. Um, Jay Dilla, as far as production is concerned.
Mm,
Dr. Dre, DJ Quick. If we want to talk singers, I mean, um, I was a really huge Daryl Coley fan. I don't know if you know who Daryl Coley is, but he's a gospel singer from back in like the 80s and the 90s. um, and he actually visited Friendship a few times while I was attending there, and I just the way that brother, like, I can't even speak on it. The dude was just a phenomenal singer. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
Donny Hathaway.
mm.
Um, um, let's see who else. I mean,
There's so many.
there's
There's so many.
so many.
So
Yeah,
many.
there's so many. But yeah, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, D'Angelo, um, and I was really influenced by the um the '90s teenage boy band, the black boy
Mm,
bands. Like the High Fives and you know
absolutely. Yeah.
uh, the Soul for Reals and the Mistas, and you know what I'm saying, like, because those guys were my age. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? So, you know, um, I picked up a lot of stuff from watching their videos too. You know what I'm saying? Listening to their music as a youngster. Um,
wow. What a
but
time
yeah,
to
I'm
grow up.
just a big music fan, man. I could be here all day naming
Right.
music.
Right. That's beautiful. But I think my last question would be, we kind of jumped, but I would love to know how you said after you sung in the French choir, you ended up getting signed by one of the Jackson brothers. Can we dive into that story?
Well, I wasn't signed by one of the Jackson brothers, but he was involved with the label that signed
Mhm.
me. It was an
Okay.
independent label by the name of OTP. And Randy had a record label of his own back then called Modern Records. And
Mhm.
And you know, they were he was around a lot. I believe that they were going to merge the two labels together to try to get some more steam, because we had a really sick camp. Like we had me, we had rappers, we had a female group, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We just had like a lot of talent in our
Yeah.
camp to be an independent camp, you know. Because back then that was when they was giving out label deals, you know what I'm saying, for label independent labels that had a repertoire of artists that the major labels could push out there. So, you know, they were trying to get a label deal, and we had a lot of talent in that house. And so Randy was around, you know, he would take us to his crib, or, you know, to his studio. You know, he'd come to the studio sessions and things of that nature. You know, he always tell me, Dahliam, you're gonna be a big star. You're gonna be a star, Dahliam.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like 19, 20 years old. I'm like, man, I'm ready. Let's go, let's go, let's go. You know,
Right?
but unfortunately, you know, it didn't work out that way. Um, but that's all good. You know what I'm saying? Like, God is bringing things full circle. You know, I actually just reconnected with the writer by the name of Abel Mason. He was writing all of our material for all the singers
Wow.
back then for that label, and that's how the Randy Jackson connection came about. Because him and Randy are like this,
Mhm.
and so he didn't even really know what was going on with me. He's just been trying to tap in with me lately. You know, and we he called me this morning. We spoke this morning, and he was like telling me some of the stuff that he did. You know, he had worked on Leon Thomas's recent album, and
Beautiful.
you know, he was just like, man, I gotta send you some records. So like, I'm really excited to get back with Abel, and you know, and trying to reconnect with him and Randy, and you know what I mean, and seeing, you know, how, you know, I can bring them into the fold of what me and my band are doing right now. But yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Truly circle moment, like things are coming back from the past, you're reconnecting with
Yeah,
who you
yeah,
were in touch
and
with.
that was a crazy time in my life too, because
Yeah.
I was wilding out. I was, you know what
Oh.
I'm saying? I was wilding, and I was
Mhm.
wilding out, you know, and I
Mhm.
was, you know, I was like at the height of what I would call my thugging it period in my life, you know, because I was in the streets for a bit, you know what I'm saying, and um, you know, and when I signed to that label, you know, I, you know, that was when I witnessed a lot of shadiness, and witnessed, you know, going to parties and seeing a lot of stuff that was just like wicked, you know what I mean, and you know, and that situation, I was on that label for 3 years, and you know, it didn't that situation didn't the label ended up folding, and everybody kind of like split up and went and did their own way, did their own thing and everything. So, you know, that was when I really was like, all right, I'm doing this by myself. Like, I'm not gonna depend on anybody, I'm not gonna rely on anybody. I'm just gonna use my gifts, my talents, and trust God that He gonna make it happen. And even though it took 28 years, man, it's awesome.
That's
So
beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything happens at the right time, you know? And I'm
It's
just,
all in His timing, man.
yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank
You.
you for all the gems that you dropped. I wasn't expecting that, but thank you so much. Thank
Hey,
you.
no problem, man. No problem. Thank you for having me today. Like, like
Mhm.
I said, like this is, I feel honored. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need it to be NBC or Source Magazine or whoever else that's doing the interview. Like, I'm honored that you wanted to know my story, and you know, you took the time to reach out. You know, because you know, I'm sure, you know, in due time, you know, all those other people are gonna come knocking on the door too, wanting to, you know, get some type of exclusive. But I'm glad I was able to give it to you first for your first interview. You know what I'm saying? So if I do get famous one day, you always gonna have that staple. Like, I was the first.